Welcome to the latest edition of the DBS webinar series, Insurance Insight, where we tackle in-depth topics, dig deep into breaking news, and scour the industry for the people who can give you the information you need as a financial professional. In these sessions, we give you the tools and analysis so you can better understand the products and solutions that will help you help your clients. Now, here's your host, Kurt Fasen, DBS Sales and Marketing Executive.
All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us today. We are getting everything set up so we can get started here. And our guest today is going to be our CEO, George Van Dusen IV, or most people know him as Chip Van Dusen. And before I bring Chip onto the screen, I'm going to let our tech crew kind of work behind the scenes to admit a few more people. And I also want to give you a little background of everything that Chip has been involved in. So Chip has been involved in the industry for a long time, and nearly 30 years. And not only is he the president, CEO, and one of the co-owners of Diversified Brokerage Services, but he also has been extremely active in the industry. And this has allowed him to really give back and have great insight in the industry and what's going on. In fact, today he serves as a board member of FinSeca. You may remember FinSeca is formerly AALU and Gamma. He is also the chair of the Government Affairs Committee as part of FinSeca. So he has a really great insight of what's going on Capitol Hill. He is the past chairman as well as a current member of NELBA and the past president of the Minneapolis Association of NAFA. He's also involved in many carrier advisory councils and is active member of LIF Inc. as well as National Life Brokerage Study Group. And just like myself, he is a native of Minnesota. Chip, welcome.
Good afternoon, Kurt. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thanks. Hey, before we get rolling, Chip, I just want to give a few ground rules to everybody. Hey, first of all,
whoa, you didn't say anything about rules.
Well, boss, I mean, you know, you don't have to follow all these rules, but maybe for our guests today, we can do that. So a couple things, if you happen to have your camera on, please turn it off. We have also muted all the lines. We have a very large number of people on the call today, and so we've muted all your lines. But if you have joined us, say, last year, we're still using the same way for you to connect to us. So if you are interested in asking a question, just go into the chat feature in Teams. I'll see that, and then I'll do my best to try to ask Chip along the way. So Chip, let's start out with a look back at 2020. And when you think about 2020, what's one word that you might want to use to describe it?
Well, first of all, thanks, Kurt, for having me today. And I'll get into answering your question in a minute. And first of all, I want to thank you and the team at DBS. We've been doing a number of these webinar series throughout the year, and you all have been doing an amazing job. So I just want to congratulate you all for everything that you do for our firm and everything that you do for all the advisors. And secondly, I just, it's like old home week as I see all the various people that are signing on to the webcast. And man, there are so many of you that I've known for 30 plus years, and it just warms my heart that that you might have some interest in what I have to say today, but nonetheless that you're still out there, you're still at it, you're still committed to being the professionals that you all are. So again, welcome to the webinar. Kurt, I would say that, when I think of one word, the one word that comes to mind is unprecedented. And this past year, 2020, was unprecedented in so many different ways. It generated so much challenge for everybody. Yet there was still so much that we all overcame, not only as individuals, as business owners, operators, as individuals that serve clients, as representatives of this great country. And you know, the 2020 was unprecedented in, certainly aspects such as what we had at DBS. See, I think there might be someone who's not on mute, so if we could have someone mute them, that'd be great. Kurt, do we have the ability to mute whoever that is?
We got it.
Okay, perfect. All right. So, look, unprecedented, right? And again, in 1,000 different ways. We had everything from, complete upheaval in how we work with our clients, how we work at DBS. Our home lives were, completely changed. Many of us were working from home, continue to work from home. We have spouses, children, pets, adult children, and so on, that are sometimes even grandkids that are all hanging out and part of our family. So we've all had to deal with that. Obviously, here in Minnesota, we were faced with a lot of challenges in our city. We had a lot of civil unrest due to some very tragic events that took place this summer. We all had to endure all of that. Obviously, we've seen a marketplace that was very, very low interest rate driven, putting a lot of pressure on, certainly insurance companies and other businesses. Oh, and then to top it all off, we have a global pandemic. So, yes, lots to overcome and to adapt to. And so I would say that 2020 was unprecedented for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm not sure if a year ago, Chip, you and I would be doing webcasts from our houses. It has been an amazing year. All right, so talk about the unprecedented year and what lessons were learned from the year.
Well, gosh, I would say that the first thing was that 2020 gave myself, the leaders at DBS, the ability to practice a lot of patience and calm. There were a lot of trying times, a lot of difficult decisions that needed to be made. And so, one of the things that we needed to do is we needed to make sure as leaders that we were calm in the face of adversity, in the face of change or challenge that was happening, right here in our own backyard, or throughout the country or even globally. So I would say that was a big lesson learned, was how to really impart that feeling of patience and calm onto employees and others that we work with and serve. I would say another big lesson learned is, and we've learned this over the years, my sister Tori and I, my partner, our father was a great leader and a great teacher, and there's dozens of you on this call that knew our dad well. And one of the things that he taught Tori and I was to look for the opportunity in adversity. And whenever you're feeling challenged, or the marketplace is challenged, or your business is challenged, you need to look for the opportunity. And we were able to, again, example patience, calm, poise through some very turbulent times in order to help identify and seek out the opportunity. And then again, as leaders, it's really our responsibility to identify what that opportunity is and then create a path for our leaders to execute on that, and we did some really amazing things in 2020 along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it goes back to, I read years ago, Warren Buffett said, the time to start investing is when other people are nervous. And I think that's right. When there's unrest, when there's disruption in the marketplace, that's the time when, people can really position themselves for the future and trying to figure out what that next chapter is going to look like. So when you're making decisions, what factors are guiding you, and what is your approach for the company overall?
Well, I'm, as you know, because you're part of our executive leadership team, I'm all about collaboration. I like to get a lot of feedback. I bounce a number of things off of different people, different centers of influence, whether they be within our enterprise. Certainly, you and Tori as part of the executive leadership team, but there are other key stakeholders within our organization, and then there are many that are outside of our organization that I rely on and get feedback on. And some of them are not even in our business. They're just business owners and or leaders that I become, acquainted with over the years. And that's been an important, an important piece for me, and I believe also Tori and you that has helped us in formulate a process for how do I identify and take advantage of opportunities that we may see.
Chip, talk a little bit about resilience, and what are some steps you think you need to take charge of in this coming year, and others should be thinking about? I mean, to maintain operational resilience in the coming year, what's that going to look like?
Well, I think that's continuing to build off of what we did in 2020. So I'll give a couple of examples. Obviously, during the pandemic, we as an organization, you all as advisors, were faced with the ability of how do we interact and engage with our clients? How do we sell some of these really important products that they need and want, and we believe fit the planning that we're doing with them? And how do we accomplish that in an environment where people are afraid, they don't really maybe want to get examined, they don't want someone coming into their house, maybe we don't even have exam companies that are willing to go out and do exams. How do we kind of overcome all of that? Well, a lot of what allowed us to be successful and to continue to build on in 2020, that groundwork was laid, over the last several years. So, migrating a lot of our, more transactional oriented business, i.e. term insurance, to the web, drop ticket, e-policy delivery, those types of, phone interviews and so on. So those were all things that we had really became market leaders in prior to 2020. So when 2020 rolled around and all of a sudden we're faced with, you can't run over and sit down face to face with a client and take a paper application across the kitchen table, which so many of you on this call have done for, decades. We needed to be able to pivot and help you as advisors pivot quickly. And so, we have a multitude of solutions, both term and permanent products and linked benefits and so on, that allow an advisor to pivot just in that way, so that they're able to continue to serve and be of value to their clients in a virtual environment until at some point everybody feels good about getting back together again face to face. And I think for 21, resilience is going to look like just continuing to build upon that, continuing to hone those skills, and continue to become experts at how to navigate that landscape, because I don't believe that we're going to be in a non-virtual world even after we kind of get past the pandemic and COVID-19. I think that people have become a lot more comfortable. And frankly, in a number of situations, it's made it a lot easier and even faster to move along with clients, particularly when you have children that live in other parts of the country that are part of the decision-making process and so on. I mean, 2 years ago, we probably weren't doing a lot of Zoom meetings with clients and all of their children on decision making. Now that happens pretty regularly.
Yeah, there's no question. Even in my role, I'm on these type of calls with advisors and at times the clients and the clients' advisors, and people are just getting more comfortable with this type of platform. But even beyond this platform, I think the one key message that I point out is, for all the advisors that are with us live today or be watching the rebroadcast of this, I think it's also leveraging the tools. And that's what you talked about, Chip, is how are you leveraging those tools that can help make it even more seamless for your and easy for your clients ultimately.
Yeah, and just to add on, Kurt, we're going to need continued help from our carrier partners, right? There were many of them that were prepared and kind of ready with solutions that were either delivered prior to the pandemic or that were delivered during, and then there's a whole host of many that are in the process of getting ready to deliver some solutions, which is a tad late, but nonetheless, I think there's a great opportunity to continue to build on that in 21, both at the advisor, the intermediary, and the manufacturer level. That's really important. I think there's a real seismic shift towards easier way of doing business than what we've been accustomed to for so long.
As we think about uncertainty, and uncertainty it just comes around, every so often. Uncertainty will hit the market, it'll hit the economy, whatever. Talk about what the past success in your business has done to prepare you and the business for uncertainty, and maybe some learnings for some of our advisors in their own businesses.
Yeah, it's great question, and we've looked at a number of events that have occurred in our business, and that's one of the benefits of having and being a part of an organization that's 53 years old and being there 31 years, and having the benefit of not just only working there 31 years, but watching a visionary work in it for a number of years prior as I was growing up. And so, Tori and I have been able to be, front row seat witnesses to how do we adapt an organization in a very changing environment and challenging environment, and how do we take advantage of opportunity? How do we do it in a thoughtful way? And for me, it's really all about risk mitigation, right? Looking at an opportunity that may present itself, and what are the risks of us doing it? What are the risks of us not doing it? How can we mitigate those risks? What are the expense factors? What's the tail on the potential, revenue generation going to look like before we're at a break even or at a profit? Those are all really important things that we looked at. And, so we chose to continue to invest in our business in 2020 in a huge way. We started an entire new distribution initiative. So many of you great advisors have migrated to the RIA space. Some have gone fee only, some are hybrid, and we felt we needed and wanted to be in that space and had to relate to that marketplace differently than we relate to other distribution sources that we have. So we made an investment. We brought 2 people on board to be in that space and to manage those relationships, and that was a big initiative for us. We added 2 additional salespeople to our team. We have a third that's joining our firm coming up here at the beginning of February. We've added an underwriter to our team. We have continued to expand the talent that we have within the organization. A huge commitment to investment in technology, which has been really important for us. Whether it's around data security, whether it's around how we manage the business that you all write and that we process for you, to website, all those sorts of things. So 2020 was really a time in which, let's face it, our business was down in 2020 in comparison to other years. But doesn't mean that we weren't willing to make the investment necessary to position our firm to be stronger coming out the other side. And that's one of the huge benefits of having a very established and financially strong company such as we do.
Yeah, and I think the key message in all of that too is the why. And the why is we're going to be here for the long term. probably long past, I dare say, Chip and I's involvement. I mean, this firm is going to be here, and it's going to be here for you, the advisor. It's going to be here for your advisors that are working in your offices, et cetera, that will eventually take your offices over. And so we have a commitment to the long game. And so that's important. I want to go back to something I talked about in your introduction, Chip, and then tie it back again to our audience. So you and I have known each other a couple decades at least, and part of that time you and I spent at what used to be called the ALU and now is called FinSECA. And talk a little bit about two things. How does being part of FinSECA help you, just you and your decision making for DBS? And then how do you think it could be beneficial to those that are on the call that aren't yet part of FinSECA? Kind of the insight, you know, I won't steal your thunder, but there's lots of things that come from that.
Well, yeah, you know, thanks for bringing it up, Kurt. And I'm not, you know, look, do I think that you would all benefit from being a part of FinSECA? 100%. But that's not what this is about. This isn't about promoting that organization. It's really just a reflection on, you know, our commitment to industry involvement as an organization and how that's benefited us. And we really learned that, again, Tori and I learned that from our father. You know, our father was heavily involved in the industry on a local basis for a long time. And then on a national basis, you know, in our kind of brokerage general agent environment, and, you know, served on various carrier advisory councils and so on. And it was just a very natural progression for Tori and I, once we recognized and could firsthand witness the value that he was able to bring to not only our firm, but to the advisors that we work with as a result of his industry engagement. So that gave us really the drive to want to be a part of, you know, kind of a commitment to industry involvement. And it doesn't just stop with Tori and I. You know, you yourself, Kurt, you know, Lori and Leah and, you know, countless others within our organization are all part of various carrier boards, underwriting groups, and so on. And so industry involvement is critical for our, you know, personal development, for the development of our firm, as well as helping the advisors understand what's happening in the marketplace in a deeper, more thoughtful way. And my involvement with FinSECA as the government affairs chair has been really helpful. I mean, it doesn't hurt when, you know, a long-standing member of FinSECA, formerly ALU, is Terry Getman, and she happens to, you know, be on your team. And so, you know, in fact, Terry was the first person to encourage me to get involved with ALU, which has now become FinSECA. And so I'm grateful for that introduction to such a neat organization. But it's enabled us to recognize and see where we've got potential headwinds coming from, whether it be on a regulatory front or on a legislative front. Those are really important. And then we subsequently communicate those to you all. You communicate them to your clients, and there's value. There's big value there. Subsequently, you know, not for nothing, but many of us have had a hand in helping shape and manage and make law, right? So by visiting and meeting with members of the House or members of the Senate, it enables us the ability to influence, to educate, and to bring more knowledge about what it is that they're proposing to do and how that may or may not impact our profession, as well as, you know, the clients that we're all serving. So it's very rewarding. It's sometimes a lot. You know, my sister Tori is currently on the board of NALBA, and currently also on the board of Libra Insurance Partners, our marketing organization. We're both on various advisory councils. Again, I'm on the board of FinSECA. I'm also on the board of a reinsurance company. And, it's, again, industry involvement is just super important. And our ability to deliver some of those thoughts and reactions and learnings that we get from those events to you all in the form of, things that Terry might put out or things that come from our marketing department is really awesome.
Yeah, I think that's important because at the end of all these calls, so I'll just say it right now, I usually bring up the fact that we have a special spot on our website that talks about the pulse, and it's the pulse of what's going on in DC and how potential legislation or legislation that has recently passed has impact on our industry. Well, one of the reasons why we have that insight is because of our involvement in these organizations like Vinseca. So either you're a part of it or stick close to DBS, and we'll make sure you're in the loop.
Yeah,
All right,
just a quick comment along that. Just for 2020, or for 21, 22, I mean, it is eyes and ears wide open because there will be a slew of changes coming our way, right? So probably not in the first, quarter or two, but as we get on into, the third and fourth quarter of this year, we're definitely going to start seeing and potentially even feeling some of the impacts of the changes as a result of a Democratic White House, and Senate. So a lot of changes coming our way, whether they be tax related, regulatory related, how how we are regulated and managed as far as what we have to do and demonstrate when we're interacting with clients. So it's kind of a whole new ball game, and you'll get a lot of the good scoop right here at DBS.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's a good segue because I was going to say I think we've looked back enough. I want to look forward now into 21, and you as we've said, you're very involved with many insurance carriers. So where does the insurance industry stand as we enter into this new year? And talk about your outlook and how much hangover are you expecting from the pandemic?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm very bullish on 21. I'm sure that surprises and shocks so many people on this call, but I'm very bullish on 21. We're already off to a really good start. Activity, paid cases, and so on are stronger and greater than they were in these same periods very early in the year in 2020, which was really quite excellent. But I think we're still facing a lot, right? We've got very low interest rate environment, so there's a ton of pressure on the manufacturers. We are still neck deep in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're likely going to continue to be deep in it, maybe not neck deep in it, but we will be deep in it for at least through the first quarter, perhaps even partway through the second quarter. As we continue to roll out more vaccinations, we continue to roll out the reopening of economies within various states and so on. So we definitely have a very big COVID-19 hangover as we're still kind of in the middle of the pandemic. I do believe that Washington is going to infuse a lot of capital into the country over the course of the next 6 months. And I think that will help buoy and fuel things. And, again, I think that's an opportunity for a lot of optimism, particularly on a part of clients. It should be as well for advisors and so on. As far as how we engage with each other, I think we need to continue to be comfortable with how we're engaging, such as we are right now. We're probably, we're kind of gauging when we might interact as a company, when we might come together as at DBS, as well as, measuring what other companies are doing, in our area as well as nationally. And, it's really looking like, end of second quarter, third quarter, kind of the earliest timeframes that we're hearing from people about when we might have a little bit more normalcy with respect to gatherings. And then even then, it's going to be different, right? It could still be masked. It could still be distanced. There, could still be limited in the amount of personnel. So there's going to be a lot more changes that we're all going to need to get used to. But one thing we can all do is make sure that not only us as a firm, you all as advisors, and your clients are really comfortable with how are we making our financial decisions, in a virtual environment, because that's going to still be, pretty primary for a period of time. So continuing to hone those skills along those lines is going to be really important.
Yeah, and Chip, I would think that it's going to be a hybrid. My belief, it'll be a hybrid after we get out of this. I think some people will have found this new way of working more desirable and may lean into it even more, and other clients may miss getting together with advisors in their offices. So I think a lot of good will come from this as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there are certainly efficiencies. We've heard from a number of advisors that just felt that, look, as a result of the pandemic and result of having everybody have to force to go virtually, it made it a lot easier to be able to have some really important dialogue with extended family members, with other advisors, i.e. attorneys or accountants. As long as you can get everyone's schedules coordinated, to be able to dial into a Zoom call or a Teams meeting for an hour versus trying to have people, come in or be on the phone or what have you that are, in other parts of the country has been challenging in the past. And so I think there are efficiencies. So again, looking for the opportunities to bring value in a virtual environment is an important thing to be thinking about.
Yeah, no question about it. Well, let's shift gears and talk a little bit. I want to get a little bit deeper into your insight around the carriers and the hangover, and what type of product changes, pricing changes. Obviously, I'm sure there are things you can't discuss because of non-disclosure things from being on these advisory boards. But just give us a sense of what you believe advisors should be preparing themselves for as they walk into 21.
Yeah, great question, and it is. We are in the midst of continued kind of upheaval. So we've still got many insurance companies that have a lot of restrictions around underwriting protocols, around underwriting issue ages, and whether or not they will take ratings at certain ages, and so on. And we're going to continue to see, I hear from Lori that we're going to continue to see that for at least a couple quarters, perhaps longer, but for sure a couple of quarters. We've seen some tightening at some markets, and yet we've seen some easing at others. So again, a little bit of a mixed bag, but this is where our case design analysts, Lori Walker, our chief underwriter, her entire team can be really helpful in helping you navigate that space. From a product perspective, it is a challenging environment. Typically from a protection standpoint, forget retirement, income, accumulation type sales for just a second. But for protection, people want guarantees, or they at least want a mortality-based guarantee. And let me tell you, guarantees are friggin' expensive. And in this low interest rate environment, it is super challenging for the manufacturers to be able to price product to make that work economically for them. So we've seen an unprecedented amount of carriers either completely pull out of the guaranteed product space, or raise those prices so high that it's really challenging to have a client become comfortable with the almost cost prohibitive. And so we saw a shift to, we used to sell a lot of, whole life, and then we sold universal life with long-term guarantees, and, whole life was too expensive, some people said, or you blended term into it and therefore you took away some of the guarantee. So a lot of people shifted to GUL products. Well, you can't find a fixed guaranteed universal life product that to really save your life at this point that's got a full guarantee on it. We just last week 2 more carriers pull out of that space entirely. So it's really a changing landscape. So we saw a big shift to, kind of index universal life products with a guarantee somewhere around age 90. And we've been selling, all of us have been selling a lot of that collectively for a while in the protection space, some with long-term care riders, some without, and so on. Then we saw a big shift to, if you want a longer duration guarantee, a lot of variable products, whether it be, kind of the Lincoln BUL one type products, Prudential, Protective, AIG, a number of other companies had long duration guarantee VUL products. So we thought, oh, okay, great. Well, it's registered. Not everybody's registered, but at least we still have a product priced competitively that we can offer to our advisors, to them, have them offer that to their clients. Well, that marketplace completely changed again in the tail end of 2020, with a lot of huge price increases and virtually eliminating of those products. So yet more shifting. So I think the low interest rate environment will continue until we see some inflation. And I don't quite know when that's going to happen. But until we see some inflation and we get the 10-year treasury, up 1-2%, we're just not going to see a lot of these long-term guarantee products come back into favor from a pricing standpoint at the manufacturers. It's very difficult. Then, you top it off with, we just got done going through all, in 2019, all the products that needed to be repriced for principles-based reserving, as well as the new mortality table. So we had a huge slew of products that were all brand new in 2020. Many of them we're not selling anymore today because they can't, frankly, the carriers just can't make a buck on them. So we're shifting. And now we've got some, at the end of 2020, when they passed the last Relief Act, they put in a little clause in there called, or some changes that they made to some tax law on 7702. And there's some great writing that Terry's done on this, but essentially 7702 was very somewhat archaic in its interest rate assumptions, and they needed to be updated. And it was really to the point where there were a number of manufacturers, many mutual insurance companies that were really prohibited from manufacturing competitive product, making their products available to the marketplace. And that's never a good thing for our profession. And so there are a lot of benefits to 7702, whether you're a mutual company or a stock company. And, as new product that fits 7702 continues to roll out and come out from our manufacturer friends, we'll be the first ones to communicate the opportunities that lie within. But 7702 is a very good thing for the profession. It was really important because, frankly, we had, long-time mutual insurers that were potentially could be not able to write new business or, stay in business. So it needed to change. It needed to change with the times. And I'm glad that FinSECA and the ACLI could be helpful in trying to help orchestrate that happening.
That's great. Hey, I have one other product question, and then we'll switch gears again. But something that I'm starting to hear more and more about is variable. And can you? It feels like there's a bit of a tide change that's happening. Can you give a little insight why you think that's happening, and how big of a shift is this going to be at the carriers?
Well, I think first of all, the carriers realize and recognize that not everybody is registered, right? So they're going to still have products that they manufacture for those that are not registered that they can sell. But I think that there may be a point where some of those products will be disadvantaged over registered products. The manufacturers, again, are looking for opportunities where they can have more of a risk sharing environment with the consumer, right? Or policy owner. And a registered product chassis affords that a little bit more of a risk sharing approach. There's more risk that is taken on by the owner / insured. And then there's also obviously risk taken on by the manufacturer. So we're seeing a big shift in that. I think a lot of the creativity on products that we're going to see in 2021 will be in the registered product area. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we felt that the registered product was a very relatively safe haven for kind of our longer term duration guaranteed products. I think that'll continue to be the case. They just won't be able to be priced as competitively as they had been because they are still impacted as a result of the reserving requirements that they have to lay out for those longer term guarantees.
Yeah, for sure. I'm thinking of a conversation you and I had late last week that I think would be good for us to bring up here. And that is, there were many cases that DBS had and the advisors on this call had, and that for whatever reason, maybe they were above a table 4 or whatever, just couldn't get placed in this pandemic. What are some strategies that you suggest the advisors on this call and those listening later should do with those cases? Do you think that the shift has happened so hard that those cases are dead, or is there still some hope?
Well, look, I think fundamentally, if there's a need, if the purpose of the insurance still exists, then I think there's always opportunity to revisit. Even in cases that were declined, right? They could have been declined, just because someone's declined today doesn't mean they're not insurable at some point, and perhaps sometimes that's even in the near future, right? But certainly COVID and the carrier restrictions that they placed with respect to COVID, we have a treasure trove of cases that we are just kind of waiting for a little bit more relief from the carriers around some of these guidelines before we start going back and reactivating many of those opportunities. And I think that I think we're going to get that opportunity this year, not not beyond that. And so, kind of tail end of the first quarters when I would start having conversations with my clients again, that we didn't quite get to accomplish what we wanted to in 2020. And we kind of felt like we blamed it on COVID, whether it was because the manufacturer couldn't get the underwriting squared away, or my client didn't feel comfortable with the process because the carriers didn't have a great process for them. A lot of that has changed. And so, again, an opportunity to kind of go back and look at, what are those kind of top 10 cases, top 10 clients that I didn't get to execute on in 2020 as a result of the environment, and see if we can't look to, and I would think that reaching out to those clients and validating that there's still the need and still the interest to move forward, tail end of the first quarter is a good time frame to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I would say that, anybody that is on this call is likely someone who is interested in the sale of and the marketing of life insurance. But the one thing that I found very interesting last year, Chip, I want to say it was maybe September, probably last year. It was, according to LIMRA, it was the largest month ever for life insurance applications in the United States. And as we look at all the things that we've covered on this call, there seem to be a lot of roadblocks and lots of things, but it's still super important. And more than ever, people are looking for solutions with life insurance. So just know that you can lean on DBS or any part of the team to really help you navigate through this new way of working. Chip, one last question for you. What else would you like to say as you think about 2020 and you look forward to 21? And what advice might you have for the advisors out there?
Well, look, it's with, I look back at 20 with, great amount of of gratitude, gratitude for all of the, for my partner, for our leadership team at DBS, for all the employees at DBS, tremendous gratitude for all the advisors that chose to continue to work through a very difficult and challenging environment and to be of service to their clients and chose to to do some of that business with DBS. We're immensely grateful for all of that. So I guess when I look back, the word of choice, for me kind of now is gratitude. Absolutely. We have a amazing team, and we have amazing distribution. Many of you are represented on this call today, and we thank you for that. And look, we continue to make a lot of great investment in our firm in 2020 that will allow us to continue to execute in an even better fashion for you and your clients going forward. As far as from an advisor perspective, I think I would be highly focused on how do I connect and affiliate myself with an organization that is going to help me and help my clients the most. And what I mean by that is help me so that I can serve them in a fashion that is comfortable for them, comfortable for me in the procurement of life insurance. How can I serve them in a fashion where I'm dealing with an organization that's giving me information that's tangible, that's usable, that's easily relatable to my clients on what's happening in the industry and also what's happening in Washington. Looking for key insights, looking for an organization to deliver me key insights on what's happening, whether it be with tax policy or what's happening, potentially with the Department of Labor or the SEC and so on, because there's a lot that's going to come down the pike in the next 24 months. And, that's, and then just continuing to nurture how do we continue to engage in a virtual fashion, knowing that we'd all prefer to be doing it together. We'd all prefer to see each other face to face. And when ready, we're ready. You are ready to meet with your clients face to face. We're ready to meet with you face to face. But we want to make sure that everybody feels good about that and that we're ready together. So, those are kind of my final conclusions.
That's great. Chip, thank you. Before people hang up, I just want to give you a couple bits of information real quick. So first of all, if you have any questions about what we covered today or anything beyond that, make sure you go out to our website. We have a full website that has all the COVID underwriting changes and product changes. In fact, I'll tell you, I can't say who, but I can say it must have been 20 minutes before we went live with this webcast today. We got another product change for one of our major carriers. So things are changing pretty rapidly, and you want to make sure you stay connected to DBS throughout it. Now, coming up next, my good friend Chuck Anderson, who is National Sales Vice President, Securing Financial, is going to share his perspective on the state of the industry. Chuck's been in the business a good 30 years and has a tremendous experience. I think it'll be a great follow-up to the comments today from Chip. He will be joining us on our normal time, which is Wednesday the 27th. So coming up pretty quick, and that'll be at 1 o'clock Central Time. So to get information about that, we'll be sending this broadcast out to everybody that joined us today. It'll also be posted on our website, and on there you will have a way to register for that conference. Chip, thanks again for joining us today. Enjoyed your comments.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Be well, and thanks for your business.